So when we are graphing on the graphing calculator, I'm asking you to find these things, zeros and all relative max and mins. So when you look at a graph, let me just sketch one here. Say I had something like this. Okay? What I would be asking you to find are, where does this thing cross the x-axis? So what are those three values? Okay, so that's state all zeros. That's what is the location of each of these. All right, so that's the same thing that we did by hand. You could do this by hand, right? The same way we've been doing it, but we'll have the calculator do the work for us. But then also this relative max min business. Do you remember when we just had a parabola? And remember talking about this point? What was that point called?
Point symmetry.
It's the vertex that has the axis of symmetry that goes through it. But it's called the vertex. And didn't we used to describe the vertex as a max or a min? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
In this case, this vertex would be a minimum because it's the lowest that the graph ever gets, right? So now when I look at something like this, I sort of have like these semi-max and mins. This right here is the lowest point in this part of the graph, but it's not the lowest the whole graph ever gets, right? Because it goes to negative infinity eventually, so it actually gets much, much lower than this. But that's still an important point when it comes to the graph because it's where the whole thing is turning around. So this thing we refer to as a relative min. So it's not the minimum of the entire graph like it was in a parabola, but in its relative area, it's the minimum point right around it. Same thing, this point right here, we would refer to as a relative max. Because again, it's not the highest point in the whole graph, it's just the highest point of its little area. Okay, so we have a relative min and... Right, you would just have a maximum or a minimum. So these, to give these, it would just be what's the coordinate of that. So this one, I don't know, maybe it's -2, -3. So you would just give the coordinates of each relative min or max. Make sense? So I'm going to show you how to find all those things on the graphing calculator. Raise your hand if you have never used one of these graphing calculators before. Holy smokes!
I remember that my freshman year, I was like, we're going to do graphing calculators, and we never did that.
Well, it's hard because we run out of time. And so sometimes you just can't get to it. But I'm glad that we have the time right now. So these are graphing calculators. They're called graphing calculators because they can make graphs for you. Otherwise, they do all the same functions that any 4-function or scientific calculator will do, plus some. That's why these are more expensive. So we treat them very nicely because they're, oh gosh, $80 to $150 a pop. Yeah.
You download an app on your phone.
Oh yeah, now, oh, absolutely you can. Now, right? Actually, this is when I was in college, you had to buy your own, right? And it was, so I had a checking account, and I had I was pretty sure I had like $120 in it or so, and I bought a graphing calculator because I had to buy one, and I think it was like $90 or so. So I'm like, okay, I have enough money, it's fine. But then, when I went to check out, the lady was saying it's being declined. Like it was, I don't know. And I'm like, that makes no sense. I know I have $130. I know I do. I didn't, because guess why? My paycheck bounced from the video store that I used to work at. They bounced my paycheck. Oh, it was a disaster. So anyway, I just remember that was my first kerfuffle with financial distress. I don't know, but I was like, I just remember being at the store like, what do you mean there's no money? Like I was just freaking out, and that's what happened. Anyway, so you are eventually going to want to have your own. Yes, I know you can get one on your phone, but obviously if you need it in college, you can't use your phone like during a test or whatever. So you're gonna want to. And here's the other thing. These models, I had a TI-83. This is the TI-84 Plus. There's not much of a difference. Oh, see this? This is a TI-83. So when I was in college, I was using the same thing. There are fancier ones now that are in color, but it's not like, if you get one of these, a TI-83 will still do everything that you need it to do. So if you go to a yard sale and you see one for $5, you buy it. I have seen them. Just make sure that it works. Mine still works from college. And that was like 75 years ago. So if you take good care of it, they will last. All right, any Hoosers. So, graphing calculator, here they are. So when you turn them on, this is referred to as the home screen. And this is where you do your normal math, right? There you go, okay? Enter is the same thing as equals. One thing that I have to point out to you, the negative button is different than the minus sign. So if you want to do -3 times 2, the negative button is underneath the 3. It's that one. If you use the minus sign instead, you're going to get an error. So if you want to do -3 times 2, you have to type it like that, using the negative sign. If you try and do -3 times 2, I don't even think it'll, oh, because it took my answer. That's why. Obviously, that's not right. So you can't just hit the minus key. You have to do negative. Yeah. That's why I knew we'd need extras. Put yours in that pile. Okay, so negative is different than the minus sign. Be careful. How do you know when to use which one? Well, how would you say it out loud? You don't normally say, like if I was going to type in number 1, would I ever say minus x to the 4th? No, you say negative x to the 4th. But here I'd say minus 2x, right? So when you say negative, you use the negative key. When you say minus, you use the minus button. All right, any Hoosers. So, Miss Savia, how do you get this thing to make a graph? Well, you can't do it in the home screen, because the home screen is just for normal math. But you can do it. See this top corner button that says y equals? Top left corner? That's where you're going to enter in any of your functions. So go ahead and hit y equals. Now, I got a whole bunch of stuff in here. You may or may not. If you have stuff in here, like I do, I'm going to clear it. So clear is underneath the down arrow key. You just hit clear. Clear the next one out. You can use the arrow keys to move around. So what I need you to do is to make sure that your screen looks exactly like mine. If along the top, see it says plot 1, 2, 3? If one of them is darkened like that, that means that there's someone made like a bar graph or a scatter plot. We don't need to see that, and in fact, it's going to mess everything up. So if you do have something darkened like I do right now, use the arrow key to go up to it and hit enter, and it unhighlights it, and then you can come back down. Usually none of them are turned on, but if something is on, you want to shut it off. So can everybody verify that your screen looks exactly like mine right now? Everybody's looks exactly like mine? Okay, perfect. So now I just want to type in number 1. F of x and y are the same thing, so it's already there for me. So I just start off with the negative. Make sure you use the negative button. Negative x. Now, how do you do a to the 4th? Oh, yeah, okay. I skipped over that. X is the button right next to the green one, and it's green on everybody's calculator. See the button right next to it? See it has an X, a T, a circle with a line through it, and an N? That's your variable button. So we're using X's, so you just hit that. That's how you get an X. And now I need to raise it to the 4th power.
Don't you use like the up arrow?
Yes, I need to use a caret, just like you do on your phone. And the caret is above the divide key over here on the side. See it, that one pointing up, that one right there? So you hit that to the 4th. Now, depending on which calculator you're using,
Mine like opened it yellow.
yeah, it might do this because these are a little bit fancier. Right, so I'll show you on the 83. It just looks like this. X to the 4th. It's nothing special. If you have one of these specially ones, you have to hit the right arrow key to come back down out of being an exponent. That's all. I know, it's annoying. You just hit the right arrow key. Now I want to do plus 4x squared. There is a button for squared. You don't have to do a caret with a 2. You can, it doesn't matter. But if you want to do x squared, it's over here. There's a button all the way on the left that actually says x squared. If you hit that, it doesn't do the x for you, but it just does the squared part for you. Same thing on the black calculators. You could do the same thing. So plus 4x squared minus 2x minus 3. Whew, that was a lot of typing. Okay. So there's half the battle. I have my function in there. Now I want to see the graph of it. Well, remember that the coordinate plane, right, is infinite. It goes on forever in every direction. And this graphing calculator could look at any section of the graphing calculator, or the coordinate plane, right? What if I just wanted to see this area of the coordinate plane? What if I just wanted to see this area? It can go wherever you want it to. Usually, I like to have the origin on my screen, right? Especially with these. They're all going to be kind of around 0. So, when I hit graph, I have no idea what part of the coordinate plane it's zoomed in on. It depends on what the last person was doing. I have no idea. You can hit graph and maybe you see something, maybe you don't. Ooh, I just so happen to see something. Yours, it could be totally blank because you have no idea where it's zoomed in on. So if you want to just set your window to positive and negative 10, so just around the middle section, all you hit, you ready for this? You're going to hit zoom, which is the middle button, and you choose choice 6. Zoom 6 always resets you back to positive 10 to negative 10 on both X and Y. So that's always a good starting point because you're like, okay, at least I know where I'm at. And then you can move if you need to. For us, this should be fine, this window. So zoom 6, if you hit graph and you see nothing and you're freaking out, just remember, oh yeah, someone else used this calculator. I don't know what they did, but you can reset it. And once you set it, now it's going to stay here until we change it. So that's good too. You don't have to reset it every time. All right. So there's my beautiful graph. So I want to find out some things about it. I want to know where this thing crosses the x-axis. I know approximately, right? I could kind of look. Looks like it kind of crosses, I don't know, somewhere right around negative 1 and somewhere right around negative 2. But I don't know exactly. But I can have the calculator tell me exactly. Ready? Huh? You can, but table, what happens if it's at like negative 2.67? Right? If I don't have my table set for that, it might not show up. So I can ask my calculator directly. All right? What's another name for an x-intercept? They're also called...
I think we should just stick with that.
We can't, because that's not what it says on the calculator.
All zeros.
Yes, zeros. Zeros, that's another name for x-intercept, and that's what the calculator happens to use. So how do I find it? Here's the thing, you can only find one at a time. So let's pick the leftmost one first. So I want to find out where that one is. So here's how I'm going to do it. Do you see your top row buttons? And see the second one in from the right says trace? Trace, don't hit trace, but if you hit trace, this little blinky guy comes up, and then you can move him left and right, and he moves around your graph. So it can help you, but here's the problem. I think that's the maximum, but I don't know, because it can only go so many pixels, or whatever. I don't know. He jumps around. So what I want to do is, this is helpful to get an estimate, but if I want to know exactly, which of course we want to know exactly, we don't hit trace. But kids seem to think that trace is sufficient all the time, and it's really not. Well, that's the other good thing. If you accidentally hit some random button, you didn't break anything. You just go back to which we were at the graph. So you just go back to graph. So what we need, though, is not the trace button, but it says Calc right above it? That's what we want. We want to calculate things. So we're going to hit second calc. And what was it we were finding? Yeah, so we're going to choose choice 2. Now, please pay attention, because for whatever reason, this is so confusing for everybody, but it doesn't have to be. See, you got a blinky guy that showed up, didn't you?
I did not get that.
Yes.
You didn't get a blinky guy? So, again, if you don't have a blinky guy, second calc, choose choice 2.
Yeah, I got a
I know, you should just have a blinky guy. Your numbers are going to be totally different, but there should be a blinky guy somewhere.
Yeah.
Everybody has a blinky guy?
Yeah.
You can move him, right? You're going to use the left and right arrow keys to move him around. If I want to find that 0, this one right here, this leftmost one, look at the question it's asking me, left bound. What that means is put the blinky guy to the left of the 0 that you're trying to find. So anywhere to the left, it doesn't matter. I mean, I know it's hard because it's really steep, but if it's anywhere, like here, see, I can't get right on it. See that?
Yeah.
So that's okay. If I just hit left 1 or 2 times, so I know I'm on the left-hand side of it. You're going to hit enter. Now it's asking you right bound. That means go to the right of that 0. So I have to go somewhere over here.
Wait, so you go to the left of it and hit enter?
Right. Correct. You go to the left of it, hit enter, and then you go to the right of it and hit enter. What you'll see these 2 black triangles up here? They need to point at each other. If your triangles are not pointing at each other, you don't know your left from your right. And we'll continue after lunch.
See, my triangles